Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? I can't. I can say I was surprised the stinger or the intro had a slight edit today. I thought I had an extra split second, so it's not really a complaint, but I was indeed surprised. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. Things are going great. Let us see what is happening. Pop out chat and I will include it in the screen share here. We got a sunny day indeed. We will acknowledge our beautiful sunrise. I have a lot of tips this morning on how to set your thermostat again. Get ready. We'll do rapid fire. We're going a little shorter today, by the way, folks. I agreed last week to be on the BTC Sessions podcast this week, or a couple weeks ago, I should say. I agreed to be on it with Tom Luongo. So it's a redo of Tom Luongo and I from a few weeks ago. But for some reason, I assumed when they asked me that it was sort of live, and I've always done the BTC Sessions show live. But it turns out this one is going to be recorded, and I agreed to a recording time of 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, which I only really realized this week. So it's too late to change it. Everyone else has agreed. I had already agreed. So we're going to cut early today at 10:30 a.m. So we'll move a little quicker and see how that goes. What's happening, Bitcoiners, says Lance 2002. Good morning. Seaburger17 says, hey, Bitcoin, it's time to change. It's time to rearrange from who you are into what you're going to be. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Very fun. Seaburger, yes, only the older folks will get the reference from the 1970s. I didn't quite. Sorry, Seaburger. I was... I don't know. I was thinking Guns N' Roses or something, but I don't know what the sha-na-na-na-na is. And I do know my rock. My 70s rock, but somehow I'm just not seeing what it is. But I'm sure if you tell me the song, I'll know what it is. Brady Bunch. Yeah, okay, that is something I don't know. I actually didn't know anything about the Brady Bunch. I was not a Brady Bunch fan. Just a little bit, and nor were my family, so a little bit before my times. It wasn't rock and roll, though, as I see. If it would have been rock and roll, I would have known. But the Brady Bunch was a different thing. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Revelation 12:7. We're undergoing and overcomething many things today, Chef Zero. So thank you for that note. Blessings, fellow Bampians. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew from sunny Chicagoland. It is sunny across the north. BTC Plebinator. Good morning, Golden Age participants. Perfect. The Golden Age. The only person who says Golden Age more than me. BTC Plebinator. We love it, BTC Plebinator. Welcome. Morning, y'all. Good morning, crew. Good morning, Jesus is King. The Brady Bunch, they sang a song about Peter's voice changing. Simpler times. There you go. Yeah, didn't know about it. I'm about to drive past Tampon Tim's governor's mansion. Say hi, all. Yo, Tim. Hope you're doing well. Thermostat is sorcery, powered to destroy the world with digits on a wall. Trust the experts. Love the trust. Good day, folks, indeed. Jesus is King. Good day. And Johnny Midas in the house. Good morning, indeed. So that is the good morning welcome today. And let me acknowledge that is a beautiful sunrise behind us. We've got maximum sunrise. Oh, CB Van, congratulations in the house. We've got year number 15 of marriage today. That is an excellent anniversary. What's the reward or what's the gift theme of 15? I don't know. But so I guess you were married in 2011. I was actually just talking with my wife today because I picked out an old, these Korean, we're going to have some Korean barbecue at the house today. And I have one of those desk or tabletop burners that I bought, and I said, "Where do we get this from?" I didn't have a. I don't remember. I remember I've had it. We've used it before, but I was like, I trying to remember the story of where we got it. And she said, "Oh, you originally had planned to propose to me on the beach in Maine, and you were gonna create like a barbecue for it. But anyway, the ring got delayed for one reason. Crystal year, thank you. So the ring got delayed and blah, blah, blah. So we were just talking. I would have been a similar marriage year as yourself. That would have been 2011 when I was looking around for that occasion. So there you go. Congratulations, CB Van. 15 years, Crystal. I hope you find some nice crystal. Have a good anniversary. Hope you got some fun stuff planned. So indeed, that's a sunrise. And Bitcoin currently trading at 63. Let me make sure that's real. It hasn't even gone down more. 63,000 US trash tokens per Bitcoin. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee. Talk about what's new. All right. So let us start. We'll do these a bit rapid fire today. Help you all out. I know we got a lot of places in the world we got to talk about, right? Here we go, everyone. Our first indication. You're not going to believe this, guys. Drama in the house. Let me make sure you can read this correctly, the whole headline. Acadia residents, guys, they're admitting they didn't follow the experts exactly as instructed. And now these people in Louisiana are admitting what they set their thermostats to at night. The dark truth is finally coming through. We get advice every day for every city and every state and every continent, every part of the world, how to set your AC during the summer. It's different. They're not all the same, different conditions. But here we find out that there are rebels amidst our population in Louisiana. They're basically going up to the thermometer with the thermostat without any strategy, right? Without any regard for the experts. And I can even hear them right now with the rebel yell. I think they're going up to that thermostat with a rebel yell. I think they're doing it. They're coming out of the woodwork. This is Stonewall Jackson stuff here. Stonewall, on the wall where your thermostat is. Stonewall Jackson style, right? These folks here from Louisiana, right? You've heard many suggest. We've heard it. We've heard it every day. Multiple newspapers, 78 degrees. And many, you're not going to believe it, guys. Louisianans are laughing at the idea. And you think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying these Confederates with the rebel yell. That's what's going on here, okay? They're admitting what's going on. Look at what they're saying, right? They're admitting, right? They're admitting it. Many say 70 degrees, 72, right? Now we know, but there's even the most popular. This is not what the experts are recommending, guys. The most popular, number 5, 66, number 4, 74. Number 3, 72. Number 2, 68. Number 1, 70. 70 is the winner. Something is wrong with the South. It wasn't enough. We didn't go far enough during the Sherman March across the South when he lit it on fire. That was a lesson. This predated the thermostats. They should have learned we got to go back to the South. We got to teach them. They can't get away with this. They're just ignoring the experts, and they're admitting it. They're flaunting it. Confederacy is back in the game, folks. Now, let's get back to where we get some reasonable behavior here, right? What's the best AC temperature, right? AOL, 78 degrees. I think this was New Jersey. Oh, this is an old one. Why did they publish in the last 24 hours? Okay, we'll move on then quickly. Georgia, guys, Georgia, summer energy saving tips to cut costs as Georgia cranks up the AC, right? Start with the basics, small habits that add up. Turn off the lights when leaving home, raise the thermostat a few degrees, right? Track your energy use. Notice what you pay in your bills, okay? That's important. You should know what you're paying for electricity. We got more advice, though. Picking the right temperature. We get this one. This is Detroit. all of you folks in Detroit, picking the right temperature for your AC can save you money, guys. If you pick the right temperature, you can save money. Okay, very good. This is from Michigan. So we're not even close to all the states in the union yet, but we're getting there. We're going to get there soon, right? You can save as much as 10% of your bill a year. Very good news, right? Very good news. Here we see the temperature varies a smidge by region. Okay, it varies. This is why we do it. It varies a smidge by region. You just heard the Louisianans flaunting their rebel Confederate worldviews, setting it without any strategy, just going up there, right? With Americans living in the South reporting their temperatures the highest, right? So believe it or not, Southern people in the South do have a smidge tendency to set their air conditioners lower than the North. I would have never guessed that. Thank God Consumer Reports is studying the relative air conditioning settings of the North versus the South. Again, I'm telling you, people worry about Civil War stuff in America. It's brewing before your eyes. We're already seeing the divisions. We never healed the wounds of the Civil War. We're still we haven't joined as a nation. We need Lincoln around to talk about sewing this country back together, because here clearly we see we are not the same country. We're not the same people. We're setting our air conditioners at different temperatures with different strategies. This is what's going on, and it just can't last. I wasn't worried about American Civil War until I started reading these stories, and now I'm convinced, right? Close the blinds, sun-facing windows, postpone laundry, all of these things work. Ceiling fans, if you have a fan, turn it on, right? Turn it on. We get this. Should you turn a window this is a separate thing, because we know there's central air, but there's also the units in their windows. So there's a separate way to read and function and understand that. Should you turn a window AC unit off when you're not in the room, or keep it running? We ask the AC pros. So thank God we have the pros that can help us. They're similar to the experts that are helping us, these AC pros. And so this is not the same. Again, central air, we got to get other pros. This is window units, right? Not the same thing. Not the same thing. Here are the experts. Even more. This one has 3 experts, okay? 3 pros. 3 pros it took to write this article. Thank God they called them all and got these answers. Here's another one. Summer is going to be hot. How to set your thermostat to save money. We got that one too. That's been put twice. That's in Delaware. Here it is as well, back in AOL. Summer is going to be hot. How to set your thermostat to save money. Very important stuff. We've got multiple times this article is being published today. Now this one here, 5 surprising ways. Okay, these are ways that we haven't really heard of before to slash cooling costs this summer. These are 5 surprising ways. Give that a vacation, especially if the thermostat is your leader, right? Because we heard about yesterday, thermostats are leaders. Be a leader. And if you're a leader, you need a little bit of a break. Okay, try setting it to 78 when you're home and nudging it up a few degrees when you're away. Okay, don't let dust drain your budget. Neutralize the silent killer of appliances. Reverse your perspective, guys. Check your ceiling fans. Future-proof your peace of mind. Guys, you think it's simple just setting your temperature on your thermostat? You think that's simple? It's not. You need cognitive security for this job. Like I said, you need a strategy. Look at what it's doing to the country, the divide between the North and the South. Louisianans admitting, flaunting like rebels, going to their thermostat. The important thing here is you future-proof your peace of mind, guys. You've got to future-proof it, okay? You can't just, if you got one of those thermostats that has like I have one at the farm. My farm is 150 years old, the house. It was actually built during the Civil War, right? So, I got one of these heating things installed probably back in the 60s or something. And it has a metal bar on it, and you can set the metal bar according to the temperatures, right? It's, I stare at it a lot because I don't know what to do often when I get to it. So it's like, I don't know, right? But that's not future proofed. That's analog. I'm not future proofed. I got to get some of these digital ones because the numbers are really small and they're not accurate like the digital one. The digital one, I could get it right to the number and I could be big. Okay. So then I'd be future proofed. And it would be so much better for my home if I had it future proofed that way. We need it. All right. That's what we got for temperatures today. All of this stuff. Now, you've heard a lot about the super El Nino, the turbocharged El Nino, the Godzilla El Nino. Luckily, though, we have a new way of combating climate change and the El Ninos. We have super oysters now. Okay, so if you're gonna, that's the good news, right? I've seen it in a lot of movies, right? The J.J. Abrams Star Wars, right? Evil rises, the dark rises, but light rises to meet it, right? That was the big theme of Rey. And this is the good news, guys. We've got super El Ninos. We've got turbo El Ninos, Godzilla El Ninos, but now, thankfully, we have super oysters. I don't know where this is all headed, but if it leads to a Godzilla oyster, don't be surprised, okay? Don't be surprised. Uh-oh, guys. Really bad news from Bloomberg Intelligence. Climate change may drive more than $20 trillion in global costs. All of the money on Earth must be spent on El Nino and other things. Extreme weather linked to climate change is likely to generate more than $20 trillion in global spending over the next decade. That's like $1 in $5 that you make. 1 in 5. Okay, so 20 trillion is the estimate from Bloomberg. And you're wondering, how does it get to 20 trillion? Look at this. South Korean beekeepers struggle with climate change. Bees in South Korea struggling. All right, they're struggling. That's where you get to 20 trillion, guys. And meanwhile, right, we got 20 trillion in bills coming due, and stupid old Trump can't even spend a bit of money, right? We just saw the breakthrough we had at the beginning of the week when we found out that the krill poo on the bottom was doing all kinds of stuff to global warming. We're measuring the krill poo and what it did for, what was it again? The I forget what it was, but it was a big deal, right? It was like, it did something to the oceans, and we studied it. We were actually credibly able to measure the krill poo at the bottom of the ocean because of our data. Because look, and I said, look what we had. We had the data. Now Trump is dismantling our critical ocean floor observation network, guys. We had an observation network. We don't need them for elections. We had an observation network at the base of the ocean, and it was observing the base of the ocean, right? I'm at the base of the ocean. I'm observing. And we were actually able to count the poo. And so we had the old data on the poo, and then we had the new data on the poo. And then we were able to figure out where this was all headed because we had credible benchmarks and we had the data. And now, right, in line with Project 2025 recommendations, over 900 advanced deep sea sensors are being removed from the ocean floor, cutting off critical real-time data used by global researchers to track climate change. Guys, we're not going to survive. We have a $20 trillion bill coming due, and meanwhile, we can't even keep our ocean floor sensors operational. What are we going to do without the information about the krill poo? What are we going to do without the poo? I don't know. It's a big problem. It's a big, big problem, right? So meanwhile, all that's going on below water. We got big troubles below water. You wouldn't want to believe what's going on above water in America. It's even worse. If you thought the division over the temperature settings in the north and south were tearing the country apart, right? Look at this. Look at what's happening now. You're not going to believe it, right? Several GOP-led states designate June as Nuclear Family Month. Look at this division. Look at the hate, drawing criticism. Look what they've done. They've forced the LGBTQ plus community to criticize them. Can you believe that? They're sowing division. They're out there sowing division, right? I mean, we had Pride Month, right? Why can't the nuclear families just be proud? No, they have to go and spread hate. And now we get this, right? Drawing criticism from the LGBTQ plus, right? Thank God USA Today is informing us that the LGBTQ plus is mad about something. It's so out of character. I thought they were generally happy with everything. No, it turns out no. You know, I thought gay was happy. It turns out no, not if you do this. No, can't be. That's a problem. And here's our last one of the day. This one is, I don't even know. I mean, you're not going to believe it, right? There's more of this GOP state business, right? First of all, they're going for nuclear family month to celebrate the family. What? And look at what they forced the LGBTQ plus community to do, to put away the happiness for a minute and the pride, and now forcing them to be critical, right? If you think that's bad, if you think the GOP is that bad, forcing the LGBT plus community to be critical, look what they're doing now. They're basically going communist, right? It's basically this, right? DeSantis's plan, this is from Bloomberg, the same people telling us we owe $20 trillion for the environment, right? Now, thank God, letting us know about this. Listen to this, guys. DeSantis's plan to gut property taxes is a Soviet power grab. I knew he was a communist. Obviously, he's cutting taxes on private property. What else could be more communist than that? I mean, Soviets famous for getting rid of property taxes because they got rid of private property, right? Famous. And now you get DeSantis out here. His approach is different. He's not erasing private property to get rid of the property taxes. He's just saying, don't pay the property taxes. But it's almost the same thing. He's halfway there, guys, right? It's basically the same. He's cutting taxes on property, right? That's like half of the way there. That's half the way. Everyone, famously, the Soviets were all about getting rid of property taxes. Obviously, there were no property taxes either in the Soviet Union. We're on to you, DeSantis. This is a slippery slope, right? First, we get rid of the property taxes, right? And then you get rid of the property, right? Just like the Soviets. You're halfway there. Famously, that's how they did. Now, the Soviets did it the other way around, right? But that was the old way. They got rid of the private property first, and then there were no taxes. So, you know, some people say, no, DeSantis is just getting rid of the taxes. Come on, that's a likely story, right? He's out there promoting the family, right? It's a scam. It's a scam. It's obviously, as CB Van says, it's straight out of Stalin's playbook, straight out of it. This is what they do. This is what they do. Now you know. This is the communist way. The first thing that goes is the taxes, obviously. Thank God we got Mary Ellen Class here with her opinion piece. Excellent work, Mary Ellen. Save America, okay? Don't let the commies cut the taxes. We want more taxes. How can we get going without these taxes, right? We're not going to pay for any of our stuff if we have this gone. So that is our fake news of the day, everyone. I hope you liked it. Let me have a sip of coffee. I hope you're able to still manage to come up with a thermostat strategy. I'm getting close. I'll be honest. I'm getting pretty close. I think I'm ready to handle it in houses and in states that aren't my own. I'm really good at doing it here and in Vermont and in Barbados. So I'm covered in quite a bit of the geography when it comes to thermostats, but I have a really high IQ. So I don't want to brag. It's not to brag. It's just I'm trying to empathize with you if you struggle, and I'm bragging. You know, I don't want to brag, but I'm letting you know that I don't get gripped with fear when I go to the thermostat because I'm trying to inspire you. Like I'm trying to be the thermostat and lead. And if I can lead here, then that's good. That's good. Right. That is good. All right. So these are not fake news stories, but they're going to be related. So let's start about Scott Pelley. Now, normally I don't really care about the 60 Minutes thing, but watching the legacy news crash out is just too funny. No, I mean, Scott Pelley's just a dude. Like, I don't really care about 60 Minutes. I don't watch 60 Minutes. I don't care about Scott Pelley. He's a terrible journalist. Obviously, you know what I think about it all. But watching them all crash out is worth its weight in gold. We love it, right? A lot of fun. So yesterday here, we had Rachel Maddow come out and say she's inviting Scott Pelley onto 60 Minutes. I hope he's on TV tomorrow. I don't think that's sending the message she wants quite. But we also got one of these excellent montages, and I'm going to play it just to show you how pathetic the whole institution had become. So here's one of these great montages. We love the montages. The montages are some of the most persuasive things we've seen in the current media environment. So check this out.
The president doubles down on a falsehood. It has been a busy day for presidential statements divorced from reality. Well, the president's real troubles, again today, were not with the media, but with the facts. This comes after a rough start to his presidency, a weekend of tweeting tantrums and falsehoods from the president and his spokesman. And today, the president made a claim about the size of his electoral victory, a claim that wasn't remotely true. Some of the problems Mr. Trump promised to solve last night don't actually exist. Since his inauguration, Mr. Trump has continually stamped rumors with the seal of the president. His boasting and tendency to believe conspiracy theories have led to a deficit of credibility. The president's fictitious claims, whether imaginary or fabricated, are now worrying even his backers. Another blunder from the podium. White House errors of historic proportions. John, the president's top priority failed today. The courts have knocked down his immigration ban, and the president can't seem to get out of his own way because of his penchant for falsehoods. President Trump drew an X today through the welcoming words of the nearby Statue of Liberty. President Trump called a hasty news conference and went on offense with the familiar tools that built his career: bluster, bravado, exaggeration, and a few loose facts. He's described the news media as the enemy of the American people. He has likened his own intelligence agencies to Nazis. And now we have the wiretapping charge against President Obama. Is it appropriate to ask whether the president is having difficulty with rationality?
Too good, really too good. And it's important to remember here, Fisher King says, this is a good thread revealing Scott Pelley as a partisan hack. But notice also his facial expressions, the way he rests his chin on his hand. He is an actor, and a pretty good one. He is playing the part of a serious and skeptical journalist. TV news is performance, of course. You know, we have been using that frame for a long time here, and it's just becoming more and more obvious. And as it becomes more and more obvious, the persuasiveness of the legacy news becomes weaker and weaker. And so when you're thinking about this guy in this old mold, right, when you're seeing Scott Pelley presented and fired here, what you're actually seeing is this entire structure getting turned over. You're getting the entire aesthetic, the entire format, the pacing, the leading, all of this stuff used to work perfectly, and now it doesn't. New systems are coming in that persuade much more greatly, that attract much more attention. And you're seeing this old model, which he really incorporates, which he really embodies, becoming the main, becoming much less persuasive and much more obvious. It's the whole behind the curtain thing. We're getting a lot more used to seeing it. And that's why it's only really media folks that pay attention to this. And that's why they're just not seeing the ground shift beneath them. Here they all are all getting together on Jake Tapper's show yesterday. And they're scoffing at the idea, like scoffing, you know, mocking the idea here that people don't trust them anymore. And it's just delicious.
Polls do suggest that the media trust is at an all-time low. What would you say to that? Do you
Look
see
at that.
that
Look at
argument?
him. The derision.
I would venture the bold prediction that if Americans were surveyed about the trustworthiness of 60 Minutes, it may have more support and more credibility with Americans than the general milquetoast term media. What is the media at this point that they're being polled on? Are they talking about specific programs, specific sources of information? Are they talking about the garbage on the internet,
It's
the
Teddy
garbage
Moron.
on talk radio? Are they talking about the actual verified, bona fide, sourced sources of journalism, the ones who actually have credibility and empirical evidence to back up their reporting? This all feels to me like apples and oranges.
I just got mic input checked, and indeed, I was.
Polls do suggest that the media trust is.
I don't know why it doesn't register. It used to do it for a long time automatically. Hope I sound better now. Hope it sounds better. So he says, I gotta see the look at this. So good. So look at the face. Look at that. Look at that. Perfect. So indeed, obviously he's wrong, and obviously we're seeing this whole world change over, and of course their inability to persuade and their phoniness and the scripted nature of what they do, their rhetorical tricks, the arrogance, all of that is weakening, because really the amount of abuse that Trump has been able to absorb, the amount of these attacks Trump has been able to absorb over time, has left them completely weakened and completely useless and without the capacity to persuade. And that's why seeing Trump and seeing his trolling activity, seeing his media awareness, the lack of respect he gives them, the impromptu nature of the way he speaks, the lack of filter. Again, the first thing I was ever attracted to Trump about was this lack of filter. It's why the Mexican rapist speech will stand out as one of the greatest speeches ever given, because the Mexican rapist speech came in 2015 when no one had really heard this before. And again, I've told this story many times on the show, but when I worked for the previous iteration of populist politics, which really was in Canada, Canada had populist politics before Trudeau. And we had, if you watched me and Hank yesterday, we were talking about Rob Ford. I worked for Stephen Harper. We had to deal with all of this shit before anyone. We were called Nazis first. All of this experimenting that you're seeing that's anti-MAGA really came from Canada first. We had U2 join the campaign against us in 2004. We were up against a lot of this stuff before anyone. And our response at the time, the conservative response at the time in Canada, the Stephen Harper, who was the prime minister at the time, response, who was a populist, quasi-populist, not exactly a Trump populist, but not a Bush guy either, not that kind of a Republican, somewhere in the middle, I guess. And he had a strategy of media discipline. So don't give them anything that can turn into these fake news stories. And it was all about talking points discipline. Every morning, the cabinet would get together and learn what their talking points, get assigned talking points, be able to deliver those talking points. That's how they did it. And I didn't think it worked at a certain point. I doubted its capacity to win because these people will lie. And I said, no one's going to reward you for being right and telling the truth and being disciplined in talking points. You got to get in the mud with these people. And then you got to play a bit dirty. You got to shank the funding for the CBC in Canada. You got to do all these things. And they didn't want to listen to it. And that's why I went full Bitcoin, because I actually didn't think, and I had spent years trying to solve this problem. And I let them get away with their tactics, and many conservatives and populists and those folks let them get away in Canada with the tactics when we had a minority government. So we didn't have full power. We needed cooperation with the Liberals and the New Democrats in Canada, or the Bloc Québécois. And when we got a majority in 2011, that means we didn't need to ask anyone permission. We could have run anything we wanted. When we didn't start doing this stuff and change our tactic at that time, I said, it's actually over. We're not going to win again, and we're going to get destroyed. And that's what made me go fully into Bitcoin, because Obama was president of the United States. And I said, well, that's not really going to be an avenue to fix. And when I saw them scam Mitt Romney in 2012, and I didn't even really like Mitt Romney, when I saw all that happen in 2012, I said, this is actually finished. Like, democracy can't be saved at all. The media is so corrupt that we've got to completely alter the system. And it wasn't until I saw Trump do the 2015 Mexican rapist speech that I actually thought and saw for the first time a path to reform politics. And it was in the way that we treated media. It was in the way that we stopped self-censoring. It was in the way that we altered the media aesthetic, this guy's posture. And Trump has been the best model for that from the beginning, right? You can see him here doing it again. Remember, the number one trap that I used to use when debating politics in 2015, 2016 was people would say, oh, Trump is, because it was always the same. He's a fascist, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, okay, well, does a fascist give you 10,000 unscripted, unsolicited words a day to the media, just says whatever's on the top of his mind, versus Hillary Clinton, who never did one single press conference and never gave one single talking point to the media that wasn't scripted? And I said, well, okay, maybe you don't like his policies, but that he goes out and says these things is the least fascist thing I've seen in the world. That he makes himself available for any question without scripting is the most or the least fascist, most populist thing I've ever seen in my life. And his ability to be funny on stage, when you saw him do the Rosie O'Donnell thing a few weeks later, that's when I was like, okay, this is not an accident. The Rosie O'Donnell answer, only Rosie O'Donnell, if you remember, with Megyn Kelly, was one of the greatest impromptu lines in the history of American politics, because there was no way out. He was getting punched in the face about the woman thing, and found the one escape hatch that existed, only Rosie O'Donnell. And I remember listening to that on the radio because I was driving between Ottawa and Toronto, finalizing the Bitcoin study that I was about to publish. And I can remember, just smash, hitting the dashboard laughing because of how funny it was. I was like, oh, they got him. How can he survive this? And when I saw him just only Rosie O'Donnell, it just completely gave me confidence that we were seeing something that was totally new and totally innovative and would actually work. And here you see him still doing that same thing. So here he is asked about ceasefire, and whether you agree with it or not, just look at the freshness and the liveliness. That's what makes it persuasive. This is really what he thinks. This is not a scripted line. This is him being funny but serious.
How do you define ceasefire? How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
How do you define ceasefire?
It's too good. Here he is. You can see he's still got it as well. Doing the trolling thing. He's been great at trolling the media for years. Here he is saying that this wrestling thing, the UFC thing they've put up in front of the White House, he compares it to the Eiffel Tower and says it could be permanent. So, of course, the media in America is lighting itself on fire again today, which you love to see. You love when they light themselves on fire, and that's what they've done again. And the good news, though, like I said, is that Trump has taught all of us how to deal with the media in this way. He's taught not just me, not just us here, his own cabinet. People are learning more and more his media approach, how it works, how it gets attention, how not entering the frame, the frame being, what do you do about beating your wife, right? When are you going to stop beating your wife? And you don't, that we've heard that for a long time, those sort of charged questions. How do you answer that, right? There's sort of no easy answer. I don't beat my wife, then you're denying it, and then, or beat your dog is the other example. And that has been a trap for a long time, and the media and politicians and all these folks use that frame, entering that reality. And once you enter that reality, you lose. Trump finds a way to not enter the reality. He doesn't treat the question seriously, like the woman and Rosie O'Donnell thing. And we're seeing it more and more now. And here's just a great example. Yesterday, two of Trump's cabinet members were showing full Trump media literacy cognition. It was great stuff. Here is Marco Rubio with a first example, and I'll play this, right? This and the best in clip going around is a reminder of how Trump has taught the GOP suits to treat their Dem adversaries with the dismissive contempt they deserve. These people are not serious and don't deserve to be taken seriously. A healthy attitude. Remember, Trump taught us this. This is reality-changing stuff that we've learned, and why it's so important. Let's see. This is going to be a, what are we at? 2 audio checks, 2 audio in a row. Let's see if it works.
Distribution.
Well, because one of those were in cahoots with Hamas. And we saw an incredible amount of the aid flow into Hamas's hands.
Reclaiming my time. The aid was held up at the border by Israel, and you know it. You got to fix your
rules here. You can't even answer a question.
You're not following the rules. You're very familiar with how this works.
No, I don't. I never served in the House. This is a weird rule where you ask a question and I can't answer.
Would you please add time to the clock?
Nope.
He's distribution.
Well, because one of those were in cahoots with Hamas.
So that's just one example, right? We got plenty of them here, though. Here he is. Let's see if I can get through all the audio here. Let's see if this works. We're at 3 in a row here. We're 3 in a row. Let's go. Nope. Didn't work. Are you kidding me? Oh, audio check was good. CB Van. We had a clear audio check. That's okay. But I broke my streak. But let's keep going. Hopefully it works twice in a row. Here's another example.
To disarm Hezbollah and allow the people of Lebanon to reclaim its country. But it's complex. This has been going on since, since OJ had isotoners.
Very good stuff. Here he goes again, talking with Tim McBride. Here's another one. Let's see if this one works. This is about Greenland. And just real great comedy stuff here. You love to see it.
I want to focus in on Greenland. I joined the bipartisan bicameral trip to Copenhagen as the administration that you're a part of sought to seize Greenland. In the president's speech at Davos, he said, referring to Greenland, quote, "You need ownership to defend it." Mr. Secretary, does the United States need to own land within NATO to defend it?
And the truth be told, we are actually involved in conversations with Greenland and Denmark on the use of Greenland for collective defense for all of us. It's a key part of missile defense, but we're involved in those talks right now. So I think we're in a good place on it now.
I assume you're aware that Greenland is indeed part of Denmark.
For now.
Okay. Well,
for now. With the smirk was great. You love the smirk. You love to see it, right?
I want to focus in.
You love to see the smirk. Here's another one. He gets someone to storm out. Very, very good stuff. Here it is.
Representative time has expired. Representative Salazar is recognized.
Yes. And giving contracts with no transparency is exactly the reason why you shut down USAID. So practice what you preach.
She gets to scream now too?
Chairman, can we take down her words?
I'll give you some time. I'll give you some of my time. Then you just
okay. But God, what kind of thing is this? What is this? You get asked questions for 5 minutes and you don't get time to answer. It's not a hearing.
I think you said clown
like
show
a dunk
before.
tank. What is this?
I don't have to tell you. I don't.
I've even used their time. How can I answer the question? They don't even give me time. I've had to use their time to answer your questions.
Yes.
All right, whatever.
All right, so I don't need to tell you that in my community, the city that I represent, the city of Miami, you're one of the most illustrious representatives, and that we're very proud of you, not only the Cuban Americans, but the Hispanic Americans in my
Why is she
community.
leaving? I'm going to answer her questions.
Oh,
she's going. Okay, I got it. Well, thank you for coming.
All right, so we're going to talk about.
He's too good. We love him. A lot of fun. And was that a dude? Says the P-Man Van. It sure was. Yes, it sure was. No, Tim McBride's a dude. Yeah, a biological male, guys. Come on, a biological male, but a trans. So Besant also had fun yesterday. It wasn't just Rubio. We got a good one from Besant here. Let's see if we can get 4 in a row. Let's see what happens.
Free Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility.
Should I just proceed?
I'm going to proceed with my questions, and Mr. Secretary, I'm going to.
Let's be clear here. Nobody is interested in the ramblings of a capo in the most corrupt regime in American history. We want to get some facts about this deal. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I will ask my questions first today.
And we would like to hear what Adam Wyden and Jeffrey Epstein talked about. Your son's largest investment position was Rick's Cabaret. So did your son and Jeffrey Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility?
So, this is, again, what you do have to understand, and we're going to talk about in a second, is the amount of data they must now know about all the corruption of Dem politicians. They must have every single transaction mapped, I think, anyway. That's what's been going on for a while now. So here now, understanding the relationships, familial relationships to Epstein money, I think will start to be leveraged more. I think you're going to see that. So pretty fun stuff there by all these guys. And you're watching a lot of, really fun stuff. Now, Bessent didn't just have fun yesterday like Rubio. He was also talking about our favorite thing, the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Here he is yesterday in that same testimony discussing Bitcoin. You love to hear it.
And I couldn't agree more with you that economic security is national security. I gave a speech at the Reagan Library outlining my thoughts on that and how for 25 years the U.S. has been asleep, and under President Trump's leadership, we are moving forward very quickly on that. And part of that is our digital assets initiative. The strategic Bitcoin reserve is something, this is new technology, this is new ground. We are proceeding with all deliberate speed, and we are making sure that as we are doing this, in this complicated process, that we use best practices and things will be durable for the future. And I look forward to working with you and your team on that. Absolutely. And I look forward to the Clarity Act being passed this summer.
So interesting stuff. I like the forward-looking, set it up for long-term thinking. It's very Austrian school, very time preference-y. James E. Thorne says, in testimony today, the Secretary of the Treasury of the world's largest economy declared that the United States is moving toward a formal strategic Bitcoin reserve. Also, Saylor didn't sell because Bitcoin is dead. He sold to prove its capital. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin maximalists are still busy fighting each other and declaring Bitcoin dead, all while short-sighted investors sell Bitcoin and chase parabolic charts in AI. You know what they say, you can't fix stupid. So indeed, I thought this was a well-placed bit, just as Bitcoin is crashing, seeing that the United States Strategic Reserve is in motion, and understanding what it means, right? Seeing what MicroStrategy did. Again, what he said, this long-term time preference thing, this is what is really important, having our time horizons changed, having our patience tested, having our ability to psychologically withstand a time of change, because times of change are hard. You look at what's going on with the Democrats, they're struggling right now with the time of change. You look at what's going on with the legacy news, they're struggling with time of change, the times that they're in. Markets are changing. That's why you see everyone going to AI. It's pretty much the only thing with any juice and optimism right now. Everyone else kind of stressed out about the change. But just look here and just understand why this is an important time for patience and all these things, and long time preference. Here is MicroStrategy and what we've seen with this unrealized loss. Now, never forget, this is the second infamous record that MicroStrategy or strategy is breaking. Remember, they had the longest drawdown in history from the dot-com bubble that rode for 20-something years. And now they are facing the biggest unrealized loss in history, right? So two of the biggest loser statistics in the history of markets are now going to be held by strategy. And think of the patience it requires to go through what they've been through and what they're going through. So it now faces the largest unrealized loss in history. In other words, after 6 years of buying Bitcoin, the company is down 17% on the position. And indeed, bear market is an understatement. So, but think about what it requires, right? Think about what is going on in all of these systems, in all of these institutions, in the United States changing, media, how it's changing, markets, how they're changing. And when you look at, Bitcoin sitting in the middle of this, and when you look at probably the most tested entity on earth, strategy, and its ability to survive change, and you look at its 26, 27, 28-year history of surviving change in the way that it has, how it came to Bitcoin, how it's trying to survive this time around. And again, looking at the story of Bitcoin and times of change and the resilience required, the psychological settings that you need to survive this, and just realize that everything is changing at once, right? We got markets changing, and while they have the biggest unrealized loss, don't forget that the largest IPO in history, the 1.75 trillion valuation of SpaceX, don't forget that it also has Bitcoin as part of what's going on. So here they've announced what the ICO or the IPO will actually look like. 555 million shares are going to be released. $135 share price. They're going to try and raise 74.4 billion in the IPO. And just remember that this will alter the whole future of markets and what's going on with these systems. And that's why, when you get Schiff come out today criticizing Trump promised to make America the Bitcoin capital of the world, to win crypto votes and donations while his family cashed in on their crypto ventures. Mission accomplished. Since America squandered the most capital on crypto, America will suffer the most when the bubble bursts. And here, seeing Sightbringer talk about this, again, this is the frame of change, right? And Schiff is defending a dead monetary map. His entire argument depends on treating Bitcoin as an isolated object and asking whether it has a value in a vacuum. That is the wrong frame. Monetary assets do not become important because they produce cash flow. They become important because the surrounding system creates a need for coordination, collateral, settlement, escape, and trust minimized ownership. Gold did not win because it produced yield. The dollar did not win because paper had intrinsic value. Treasuries did not win because debt is sacred. They won because a system formed around them. Bitcoin is now forming a system around itself. ETF rails, custody rails, brokerage access, stable coins, tokenization, treasury enforcement, clarity, strategic reserve language, corporate balance sheets, Bitcoin income wrappers, MSTR credit machinery, prediction markets, sovereign optionality, sanctions pressure, capital controls, fiscal decay. That is the thing Schiff refuses to see. Now, I don't take any of Schiff's opinions seriously. Remember, he's a promoter and a marketer of the Trump, side of persuasion. He sees what I mean is he's kind of a wrestler, a kayfabe guy. I don't think he holds many opinions in the same as Trump, but that's what he does. He sees price speculation and says no value. The deeper structure says Bitcoin is being pulled into the core of financial power because the old system keeps producing the exact problems Bitcoin solves. Debt keeps rising. Money keeps getting politicized. Banking access keeps becoming conditional. Sanctions keep expanding. Trust and sovereign balance sheets keep weakening. Neutral collateral keeps becoming more important. Digital financial rails keep swallowing everything. Bitcoin sits at the intersection of all that. Now, that's something I've said for a long time. I've said consistently here in the morning that it's not so much Bitcoin's qualities that are going to create hyper Bitcoinization in the world. It's the failure of the dollar. Most people are selling the other side of the trade. Buying Bitcoin is selling dollars. And the case for selling dollars becomes stronger and stronger when you look at the corruption, when you look at the failures of the system. That's why we're seeing this shift, and that's why we're in this time of change, right? Schiff's mistake is not skepticism. Skepticism is useful. His mistake is category failure. He keeps judging Bitcoin like a bad stock when it is competing to become digital collateral in a world where trust itself is fragmenting. This is why he sounds right during crashes. Crashes expose fraud, leverage, scams, false belief, bad tokens, dumb money, and overpromised narratives. Schiff points at the wreckage and says the whole structure is fake, but the wreckage is just the purification layer. The internet bubble did not kill the internet, and it did not kill strategy. It killed the garbage built on top of it before the real architecture took over. Crypto is going through the same separation. Garbage dies, leverage dies, retail mania dies, fake decentralization dies, Bitcoin survives, stablecoin survives, tokenization survives, prediction markets survive, custody survives, regulated rails survive. The US does not lose by becoming the crypto capital if it captures the surviving rails. It wins the jurisdictional layer. It owns the compliance perimeter, the custody stack, the ETF market, the legal definitions, the stablecoin dollar network, the institutional distribution rails, and the tax/reporting architecture. That is power. Schiff thinks America is becoming the bag holder. The deeper read is that America is trying to become the operating system. That does not mean every token matters. Most do not. It does not mean every crypto holder wins. Many will get destroyed. It does not mean the process is clean. It is ugly, political, surveyed, manipulated, and full of fraud before the surviving structure hardens. But Bitcoin's role is not disappearing. The system is surrounding it. That is the tell. Worthless assets get ignored. Threatening assets get attacked. Useful strategic assets get absorbed. Bitcoin is being absorbed. Schiff's gold network cannot process that amount of, Schiff's gold framework cannot process that because gold already won its social authorization centuries ago. He treats old belief as reality and now a new belief as fantasy. That is the blind spot. The real future is harsher than Bitcoin utopians wanted and far more bullish than Schiff can admit. Bitcoin will not remain a pure outside the system rebellion asset. It is becoming institutional collateral inside the system. That transition will feel like betrayal to purists and like failure to bears. It is neither. It is power discovering how to use the thing it could not kill. So I've been saying for a long time that we're not getting through this by a bunch of plebs holding Bitcoin. I gave up on that in COVID. 7 years ago, I said, you know what, or 6 years ago, or whenever it was, this thing ain't going to work with a bunch of plebs holding Bitcoin. There's too many sludge people. The only way it works is if we go into the industries that matter, energy and Wall Street, and completely take over those industries. If we take over those industries, we will now be the operating system that creates incentives in many other ways that will change the psychology of the people, that will change the time preference of people, that will alter the worldview of people. And that's what's going on. That's why Bitcoiners can now, just like strategy, already survive 20-something years of a sideways, weirdly capitalized internet Ponzi scheme. It was able to pass through, Ponzi scheme's the wrong word, overly valued market from the dot-com bubble. And they psychologically survived it. And that's what kept Saylor looking for these kinds of frameworks and these kinds of escape hatches. And that's why he was able to come up with it. And that's why when we look at the systems that Bitcoin is now entering, that it's taking over, the energy system, we saw it with the IPO of SpaceX, right? Bitcoin is seeping in, like I said, they're not holding gold over at SpaceX while they're doing this IPO. It's part of getting absorbed into the system. The largest and most historic IPO of all time has Bitcoin as a part of it. The new build out of energy in America will have Bitcoin as a part of it. It's all the Bitcoin miners that know how to build the data centers. So you're seeing Bitcoin as one of these important elements getting absorbed in all of the institutions that are changing at once. That's why the Bitcoin strategic reserve is so important. That's why this new economic engine with Treasury is so important. That's why it's important that we see Besant talking about the Bitcoin strategic reserve, because that's what this is. It's a race to redefine all institutions. And that's why this is such a tough time. We're seeing millions of institutions fall apart before our eyes. Well, I don't know if there are millions, but all these institutions fall apart before our eyes, and we're building new ones, but we're in that liminal space in the middle of these times. And so, the good news is all the things that Bitcoin ends up taking over end up doing better. All the things that the old fiat sludge system goes into get worse. Here's an example, right? Going back to what we heard from the legacy news, people would think 60 Minutes is credible. That's just one type of system that's changing. Here, college, right? Americans said college education was very important. That's 2010. It's now down to 35%, right? It went from 75 to 35 in 16 years. And here, Christian Hines says, progressivism relies on hijacking institutions, gutting them, and then wearing them like a skin suit in order to push yet more progressivism without making it obvious that this is exactly what they're doing. But the paradox is that doing this eventually just kills the institution itself. And we're seeing that across the board, right? Trump yesterday even talking about communism and all the troubles that it brings and the type of institutions that fail when this ideology enters, right? And that's the contrast. That's why things are moving, like I said, not Democrat, Republican. They've been moving to Bitcoin versus communism because it's a fight for the institutions. As Bitcoin gets absorbed in these institutions, it's going to become the actual organizing principle. Things are organizing around Bitcoin. Wall Street, the energy industry, they're all going to organize around Bitcoin. Just like these institutions used to organize around political differences, Republican, Democrat, they're now going to organize around incentive differences and financial system differences. So that's why it's turning into Bitcoin versus communism. And here it's about what ends up happening to these institutions. Here's Trump talking specifically about the shift. That's why he's targeting communism directly here. Communism leads to death and destruction. He says, you see it happening with New York, Los Angeles, and it's so easy. I'd be the greatest in the world. I'd give everything away for free rent, free houses. But eventually that ends up and leads to death, destruction, and squalor 100% of the time. Blue cities tried the socialist dream, and now they're living the nightmare. That is him saying it right here. Oh, here he is. I got to play the Caitlin Collin ones too. Just going.
$1 billion DOJ fund dead, or is it on hold?
It's, I'd have to ask the lawyers. I don't know. I know one thing. The weaponization. Are you talking about the weaponization fund?
Yeah,
the weaponization fund, as far as I'm concerned, was a beautiful thing. It was something I didn't make it, but I heard that. I thought that was the greatest thing because people like you have abused our people so badly. The fake news, like CNN, like the New York Times, and like others, have abused our people. Wait a minute, be quiet. Have abused our people so badly, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You used to be a conservative.
So there she is. There he is talking about that. Here he is talking about communism.
Yeah, well, communists always do well with the voters, or as they would say, the people in the early years. But in the end, the country, state, or city goes to hell. Great violence proceeds at levels never seen before, and the entity dissolves into poverty, squalor, and crime. Remember, breathtaking popularity first, and then guaranteed death and destruction.
Well, you see it happening with New York. You see it happening with Los Angeles and parts of California. And it's so easy, you know. I'd be the greatest in the world. Nobody would be as good as me. I'd give away everything. I could be the greatest. I would sell them. You're going to get free rent. You're going to get free houses. You're going to get free food. You're going to get free everything. But eventually that ends, and it leads to death, destruction, and squalor 100% of the time. When I watch New York, and you know, I liked him very much. He stood right here, and he's been into the office a couple of times. The mayor of New York, I think he's a very nice person, and I don't know, he's a smart guy. I don't understand why he thinks it's okay for all these companies that pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes a year to leave. Because you're not going to have any tax base, and you're going to end up in hunger and squalor and death and destruction. I would be better than him if I wanted to go that route. Ladies and gentlemen, you no longer pay rent. You no longer have to pay interest on your mortgage. In fact, I'll end your mortgage. I'm going to cut everything. You're no longer going to have to pay for food. I'm going to give you a grocery store, and I'm going to give you free food. You're no longer going to have, you're going to have the greatest life ever. Follow me, you're going to have the greatest life. And you know what? For a couple of years, that's such a powerful, I would be the best ever at giving it. Nobody would ever be. I had to sell free enterprise. Free enterprise is tougher to sell, but that's what's made our country great. And that's why it's great again.
So him targeting that, and then, you know, talking about what they do, when they touch these industries, right? So it's a race to change these institutions, to alter their incentive models, to alter their operating system. And that's why all the fraud stuff is so important, right? Here you see Trump yesterday also in all of these announcements talking about what he's going to do, hunting down fraud. Here's the White House announcement. Vice President J.D. Vance and Republicans are doing a great job hunting down the fraud in the various states. billions of dollars, because let's not forget that the fraud industrial complex, that's where all the brainwashing was going on, right? That's why it's important. This is the operating system here. This is the end of the fiat operating system by getting rid of the fraud, because I've told you many times the psychological engine of fiat requires propaganda and people to believe it. So it needs fraud in order to pay for the propaganda to create the incentives to keep the system going. And that's why incentives determine outcomes all the time. That's why we're seeing the operating system here alter the incentives. Again, why it's important that the big SpaceX IPO with Bitcoin in is because that's part of the incentive structure. That's Bitcoin getting absorbed into a system, the incentives aligning around these things. It's a side character in the SpaceX IPO, but nevertheless, it's the trend that's important. The fraud industrial complex became a self-protecting ecosystem embedded across NGOs, contracting pipelines, regulatory agencies, migration networks, grant structures, and election infrastructure. Trillions continuously circulated through aligned institutional hands under the banner of governance. Trump and Vance are signaling a direct strike against the financial nervous system, sustaining that architecture where every uncovered dollar exposes another coordinated layer, another protected node, another mechanism inside the larger extraction machine that has quietly fed on America for decades. And that is what is changing. Yesterday, they started talking about the firing of these folks. So let the firing begin. Some of the consequences of Doge here are coming through. Help fire deep state road federal workers in policymaking roles and holding them accountable for undermining the America First agenda. This treats employees like private sector workers. So again, this is the system reorienting, re-architecting, moving in this direction. And again, you've also got here Rubio in all of his testimony yesterday talking about how this has been done internationally for a long time. Here he is in this same setting that we were talking about yesterday, or that we were talking about earlier in this show, talking about fraud and what it means for these psychological operations. Here he is with this session saying, more or less this stuff, Psychological Operations 101. This exchange exposes the industrial machinery of modern psychological warfare operating inside America. Again, why the psychological commodities, and they are. Bitcoin is a psychological commodity. Fiat is a psychological commodity. That's why it's a race to alter the psychological profile. Again, why it's important that Besson was talking about the long-term vision of Bitcoin, because that's what this is. This is the patience. This is the time preference required to make it through these times of change. Rubio confirms foreign states are actively running influence operations through NGO networks, activist organizations, influencers, coordinated media narratives, and manufactured street mobilizations. You can even see from the story in Iran, I mean, they can even admit it here. They admit that the whole thing now has come down to just psychological operations for persuading Americans. I don't know. There it is. Yes. Here it is. Here it is. Yeah, here you go. So their whole plan is to weaken public confidence in America. It's a psychological operation, right? That is what they're doing, and that's what you have to see it as. And that's why this is an important framework. And again, you even had Trump yesterday talking about, ending income tax again for that reason, because of the nature of the money going towards brainwashing activities, that it's funding the end of America, right? You got to see it. Here he is talking specifically about it, and how the income taxes are related to all this. And by the way, just to show you the types of brainwashing that we have right now, here, this comes from that New York Times guy today. He's got some new whitewash thing on the Rothschilds. 1873, the first Great Depression and the making of the modern world. Here, all about the Rothschilds and the first Great Depression. So not working out as they had hoped, I think, when it comes to people understanding what's going on. And we're seeing it. Here's the Southern Poverty Law Center stuff just from yesterday. We saw that they're we've seen this before, but now that the actual indictments are becoming obvious, the Justice Department just secured a superseding indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center, and there are the bombshells. But you can see the money exactly for this stuff, right? Attend extremist rallies, host rallies, purchase cross-burning materials, racist paraphernalia, all wrestling stuff, all kayfabe, all ways to persuade folks. And again, why the ugliness of these institutions getting taken over is the way it is, right? It's wait a second. Got 10 minutes left, just got a warning. So taking over all these whoops. No, I'm skipping some stuff here, so I'm trying to clean up the order. So we're seeing how this stuff works, and that's why Trump came with this mix of how the money can go to the fraud systems, but he's also tying the lost money and the fraud to beautification in America now. So that's a very interesting way. He calls it the Model Cities Initiative. So here, the next step in the administration's successful war on crime, the DOJ's Model Cities Initiative, designed to slash violent crime and restore law and order in major cities across America. Here is Todd Blanche talking about the same thing, talking about how, restoring these rules. Some of it is like the broken window rules. Some of it is having more insight into where the tax money is going. But again, it's why the beauty mode is so important. And here you have Trump talking about that yesterday with the reflecting pool going in. We've been talking about this beautification stuff going on. It's related to the model cities, right? You clean up the fraud, put the money into the city. These things are more persuasive than sludge people arguments from the fiat industrial complex. Here, we're going to see today the reflecting pool is going to be reflecting again with the treatment that was given to it. And everyone's still wondering and marveling at all of these fountains that are coming back alive and what all that means and why it's so important. And again, go back to the fraud question, go back to the beautification question, and then even go back to the housing question and why Bill Pulte is such a big story, joining the DNI the way he is, as he's now the director of national intelligence. Here you're seeing Senate Democrats are moving to have leader John Thune force out Bill Pulte as President Trump's new director of national intelligence. That can't happen because, of course, Bill Pulte is acting. It doesn't need a confirmation. So that probably won't work. But Tom Luongo, who I'm going to be talking with in 8 minutes, says this is a very big deal. It is literally pointing directly at what's been going on at the FHA for the past 18 months. You want receipts, you want signal. I've said so many times that Trump stands up in one venue to draw the fire to him, while those agencies, while those in the agencies were the, anyway, his point is that other people are going and getting the work done while Trump draws fire. So indeed, here, Flopping Aces says the media wants you to focus on Bill Pulte's resume. No intelligence background, no time in the military, State Department or Congress, strange appointment, baby in spookland. That's the line they're pushing hard right now. It's also the wrong line. Bill Pulte already sits on top of the Federal Housing Finance Agency and chairs both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That gives him direct or near direct access to extraordinarily detailed mortgage, credit, and property records on a huge portion of the country, including the kind of ownership patterns, shell structures, and financial flows that usually stay buried. Now he's also acting director of national intelligence, replacing Tulsi Gabbard while keeping his housing rules. That combination isn't random. One set of hands now touches both the largest housing finance data pipelines in America and the office that coordinates foreign intelligence collection, including intercepts that can pull in communications and financial dealings involving U.S. persons. At the same time, new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh just hired Paul Winfrey, the actual author of the Project 2025 chapter on the Federal Reserve, to help redesign the central bank. Winfrey's proposals include options like ending the Fed in favor of free banking, returning to a commodity-backed dollar, and blocking any central bank digital currency because of the state surveillance power. Because of the surveillance power, it would hand the state. The people screaming about Polte's lack of qualifications are the same ones, I'm going to save this one for another time again, who spent years warning about concentrated power and unaccountable institutions. Suddenly, they're very nervous about one loyal operator sitting in the function of mortgage data and intelligence access. The resume story is the distraction. The access story is the part that actually explains the volume of the reaction. And that's what's happening. We're in the middle of this change. We're in the middle of what can be described as a reset. I was going to talk a bit about people noticing the election. Don't fall for the fake news, by the way. I see Trump already gave it some attention. This is the California or the LA mayor race, saying they're trying to steal the government primary of Los Angeles. Trump is saying that. Lots of people are talking about it because of this post. Polymarket saying that Spencer Pratt is in third in odds to Raymond. It's a scam. It's not going to happen. Spencer Pratt got second. The actual results are here. She's not going to catch him. So don't fall for those scams. It's not real. He's not going to lose. But just to give you a sense here, look at the central, look at how they bring the ballots in. The LA Sheriff County's Department picking up ballots with helicopters. Do you need helicopters to run an election? Do you need helicopters to run an election? This is a real story. This is the
LA County Sheriff's Department is flying in ballots from vote centers across the region.
vote centers. So it's totally perfect. We love to see it. And I'll leave with one quick point. I'm skipping through a lot of stuff here, so I'm missing some points at the end. What I do want to say about all of these institutions is that with all of the, here's the shifting Hollywood stuff and what's going on with one of the most important fields, here's Amazon has canceled Stargate. People wondering if we'll ever get good quality sci-fi because of the corruption of these institutions. I don't think it's a mistake. And I don't think it's a weird coincidence that the number one movie in America right now is this movie. What's it called again? Everyone's talking about it. I have not seen it. What the hell is it called again? Well, that's the movie. How do I not know what it's called? I read about it every day. Everyone's talking about it. Oh, there we go. Backrooms. Yes, Backrooms. So Backrooms. The funny thing about Backrooms is that, I talked about liminal spaces and how that's what we're in. And, even my thumbnail today is trying to show that we're in this liminal space, time of change, chaos, everything happening. The weird thing is this movie is completely plugged into the actual subconscious problems we have in the world today. This is a movie that sets you in a liminal space and gets you lost in a liminal space. Liminal space being like a school in the summer, abandoned mall from the 90s, that kind of thing, right? The anxiety that comes with it. So this movie is beat Star Wars. And just to show you that things are happening that are subconscious and that are, backrooms. Obsession is another one. And that it's happening. All right, folks, that is what I got today. Let me just tell my producer. There you go. Besant is awesome. Yeah. We got this bigger down position than when the company was worth when it started building its position. Yeah, exactly. That's strategy you're talking about. Let's see what the folks saying here. Ensuring the DA politics in the cities doesn't allow outright lawlessness. Exactly. Been watching Spider Noir. Yeah, I heard it's good. Nick Cage does some classic Nick Cage things, and black and white and HD looks amazing. Yeah, I'm going to watch that. It's on Amazon, right? I will check that out. I did like the previews when I saw it, so maybe I'll watch it. Okay, folks, I'm out of here. My producer is aware, I think, And I will see you all tomorrow. I'm going to have a fun time on the podcast. You're not going to see me on Hank today. Tomorrow we'll be back for Friday, of course, and we are doing the Canadian show tomorrow afternoon. So looking forward to that. Lots going on in Canada, everyone. Peace out. Thanks for coming. See you next time.